Hey guys, the weather's finally starting to cool down a little bit here, and I figured it was the perfect time to show you my absolute favorite gnocchi recipe. Let's get to it. Here you can see that I have 2 cups of sweet potato. I use pre-cubed because it was on sale at my grocery store, but typically I take 1 medium-large sweet potato, pierce it, and put it in the microwave for about 7 minutes or until the fork can easily go through it. Now what I'm going to do is simply just mash the sweet potato until it is smooth. We're going to set it aside to let it finish cooling down. Into a smaller bowl, we're going to add in this entire container of ricotta. Since ricotta has a high water content, we're actually going to use a paper towel and try to squeeze some of it out. Just because our sweet potato also has some water in it, we're going to want to get rid of as much of the moisture as possible. Otherwise, you're going to have to add more flour to your dough, which can make it a little too tough. And you'll be left with this. Directly into our ricotta, we're going to add in 1 whole egg right into the center. And we're also going to add in the yolk from another egg. Perfect. I'm going in with some generous cracks of pepper and around a teaspoon of salt. Now with my spatula, I'm going to mix everything together. Now that this mixture is well combined, I'm actually going to add in a ½ cup of grated Parmesan cheese. I'm telling you, these are cheesy, not traditional, but absolutely delicious. Now that our sweet potato has cooled down, we can add in our egg cheese mixture. The reason we don't want to add it in right away is because with the sweet potatoes being hot, we don't want them to scramble the eggs. I'm simply going to mix them. As you can see, everything is well combined now and it's time to add in our flour. Here's our first cup. I'm using that same spatula just to fold it in. Now I can already tell that my dough is still too sticky, so I'm going to go in with a couple tablespoons at a time of flour until the dough is no longer sticky and I can work with it with my hands. I'm starting to struggle with mixing the dough and it's starting to form a ball in the middle of my bowl. That's how I know it's probably ready to add to our surface. So I'm just gonna finish adding this little bit of flour that's left in and then we'll do that. And we're just gonna plop it right there. If you find that your dough is stickier than you thought it was, you can go ahead and add more flour and just work it in. So I'm just going to knead this until I get a pretty smooth ball that I feel I can manipulate pretty easily. Now we are rolling out and cutting our gnocchi. So I'm taking little pieces of the big section of our dough at a time, rolling it into a log. Here's what one of my logs is looking like. It's slightly thicker than the width of my finger. And I'm just going to take my knife and cut about 3/4 of an inch thick pieces. And of course, you can take your fork if you want to do the classic indentation. This recipe does make a lot of gnocchi, so sometimes I like to split the ball of dough in half and put 1/2 in the freezer and save it for a later date. You can also make all the gnocchi at once and freeze half of the batch just so that they're ready to go as a nice quick freezer meal. Beauty is that you have a lot of options. All right, now that we have our gnocchi all cut up and ready to go, we're actually going to leave it here for a minute while we get our sauce ready. Today I'm making a brown butter garlic sage sauce. Back there in my large pan, I have about 3 tablespoons of butter warming up. Starting with my shallot, I'm just going to dice it pretty thinly. You can use a regular onion. I just really like the flavor of shallots. They're a little more subtle than your classic onion, but still give a delicious flavor. So I'm just cutting really thin rounds of these, and then I'm going to just give them a rough dice. Now it's time to add this into our pan. Time to mince up some garlic. I'm using 2 cloves, but they are really big. I'm just going to mince this up very finely and add it into our pan with the butter and shallot. Now, before we add in our mushrooms, we're actually going to go in with the sage first. The reason why I do this is because I think infusing the sage in the butter before the mushrooms are added in just adds this overall great flavor, and the sage gets a little crispy too. I'm going to start with 4 big sage leaves and then add in more if I feel like it needs it. This is totally optional, but I really like this dish with mushrooms, so I'm going to be slicing these up and adding it into the sauce as well. All sliced up, going into the pan. While my sauce is still going, I cook my pasta in boiling water for about 1.5 minutes or until the gnocchi floats. I then add my pasta directly into the saucepan and let it cook for just a few more minutes before serving. So here is our final gnocchi. It smells delicious. I wish you guys could smell this right now. The butter sauce on this with the sage tastes so good, and mushrooms and butter go together perfectly. You guys have to try this.